What's up, Warriors? Guy Beveridge with Protectors Toolkit, Christian safety and security made simple. I'm so glad you're joining us here tonight on this edition, this special edition, what I call a special edition. Anytime I get joined by my brother in Christ, Jason Hensley from Shadow Mountain Church out in California, I call it a special edition for sure. And I think you'll be blessed by this as well. Let me just tell you about who we are here at Protectors Toolkit. Protectors Toolkit was made and born out of a need to continue to feed the protectors of the Church of God. Those people who every Sunday stand and say, I'm going to provide a safe and secure worship environment for my church, and you do it and you do it well, this is for you. This is Protectors Toolkit. We have a membership site. We have the Facebook page where you're probably finding us right now. Make sure you hit that like button down below. We also have a YouTube page. Share these videos far and wide. What Protectors Toolkit is all about, let me give you some guiding biblical principle about us right here. Proverbs 18:15 says this, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. And that's what we are all about, is seeking and giving that knowledge to you protectors, you warriors out there. You are made in the image of God, and he says in Exodus early on in the Bible, the Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name, so you are warriors standing out on that wall of your church, making sure there is a safe and secure worship environment for everybody that wants to attend your church. In the easy to read version, it says this, wise people want to learn more, so they listen closely to gain knowledge. And that's very important, that we are always learning. We should always be in a constant state of learning. When you go to a live in-person training for church safety and security, you should follow it up with continuing education, just like we have here at Protectors Toolkit. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm glad you're here. And I'm going to just get right into this because I think it's a fascinating thing that we're about to talk about tonight. I haven't seen this anywhere else in any of the other groups that may be out there. And I think more and more as we learn about the new norm that we're learning about nowadays in COVID times, is that we're going to have to do something a little bit different to feed the flock. And outdoor events are probably going to come online more and more, especially as the weather is getting better. Cancel just a little bit of feedback here. So I'm joined with, again, like I said, my friend, my brother in Christ, Jason Hensley. He is head of security at Shadow Mountain Church out in California. He's very fortunate to be out there, I think he would say. I've been out there. I've seen the weather. I know what he deals with, so I think he is very fortunate. In his role, he's definitely very fortunate because he gets to interact every day almost with Dr. David Jeremiah. And I think we could all agree that's just a sharpening like no other. So, Jason, I'm so glad you're here tonight joining us.
Well, it's exciting to be here. You talked about the weather, and we're in the middle of a heat wave. I'm struggling right now. I mean, it got up to like 79 today, so, you know, I'm stressed.
We will pray for you.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Golly, way to just kick us as soon as we get into this thing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's how I roll.
So I want to get into this. I think it's important, but I want to show these pictures right here about Jason's event. So I'm going to share my screen so you all can see what we're talking about tonight. This was Shadow Mountain's outdoor event. You should be able to see those on the screen right now. Shadow Mountain, obviously a very large campus, but I want you to understand tonight, by the end of this, you're going to get 6 ideas or 6 thoughts on how to have safety and security in a good outdoor event, no matter the size of your church. So don't look at the size and the scale necessarily of this church, because we're going to talk about how to make sure it is scalable and you can have a good, safe, and secure outdoor event. So you can see here just the size and the scale. And then when you talk about a scale this size, now you can start to understand how much planning and advanced planning needs to go into this, and then what the resources are needed for an event just like this to maintain the safety and security. Remember, warriors, that's what we are to do. We are to make sure the flock is protected, that everybody that's coming for comfort, refuge, worship, or learning to our space, to our campus, they have to do it in a safe and secure worship environment. We provide that for them. So when we're going to have these outdoor events, we've got to make sure we're doing the right things. So praise God that we're having this size of an event right here, outdoors for everybody to come be fed. It's just an amazing thing, Jason. I thought it was so vitally important. We talk about safety and security for outdoor events because nobody really does it better than you. You guys did it right here, and this will give our warriors and our protectors some food for thought and everything they do. So
if you could bring up that first one, I'll make a couple of quick points too. That right off the jump, and
okay, let me bring those back up.
Just the first photo. And because I think there's some cool takeaways here. That one will work too.
This one or the one back?
No, the very first one you showed. It was And one more there. That's a good one. If you guys really noticed, we divided that where, we have individual seats. So if we have someone that comes to church, and we obviously have set this up for social distancing, number one. We encourage our folks to wear the masks so that we are California friendly, according to the governor's mandate. But we have it to where, if you notice that they're reversed, you have a 1 seat, a 2 seat, 3 seat, 4 seat, 5 seat. Almost looks like reverse Christmas trees. And with it, and it's separated by 6 feet. And so that's one of the things that we were really intentional on. Down below, and you can't see it close to the stage, but we also have a row of chairs, a row of seats that were put in. This was pre-service, so we've done this for 2 weeks in a row. So that kind of gives everybody a little bit of an understanding with how we laid it out to maintain the social distancing and the outdoor piece. So as we talk about some of the stuff that you and I are going to talk about, everyone already kind of has that now in their melon.
Yeah, fantastic, man. That's just you think of the scale of something like that. So tell us and tell the viewers tonight, how far out do you do advanced planning? How far out do you start planning for an event? Dr. David Jeremiah or whoever comes to you and says, hey, we want to do this outdoors. How far in advance do you get that?
Well, I'll throw it. We actually had a curveball the week of. I think I shared it with you. So we're going into our 3rd week of doing this format. And our staff, Pastor Jay, was heavy in wanting to find a way of getting us back to church when the governor in California came out and said, you're not going to be able to. He restricted us at 100 in our sanctuary, and our worship center covers 2,300 people. Mm-hmm. So it just wasn't going to be realistic. So within the confines of what the governor put out there, we figured, hey, we could bring this outside. So here's what happens: was 3 weeks ago, we have a Christian high school, and we were going to do it on our football field or our soccer field, and we found that we could lay it out nice, and we could put 800 or so in that space with good social distancing. And then on Wednesday before Sunday's service, the curveball was thrown, and they're like, hey, we could put more out here in the parking lot on the north end of the property. And so we went from Wednesday so really for me, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday was a crash course in putting a ops plan together in order to do what the format that we currently have. I had about a week and a half prior to that out on the soccer field, and we had done a walkthrough. I brought all my guys in, kind of what I call my decision-making team, the guys I really lean on. And so we had already done a walkthrough, so we did have to kind of pivot what we were doing on the football field into the parking lot. And so 3-day turnaround, we did another walkthrough, and there's some cool things that I'll show you as we go along on where we barricaded, because it's a driveway or a parking lot.
Sure.
And so we needed a barricade, and I think that's another thing that you and I can, as we talk this through, and we can pull up one of the pictures where I think it's important that you have those process that in your op plan as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So in doing this, obviously you had to do a hasty risk assessment, and then you had to do another risk assessment for another location. What are some of the first threats that came to mind? Obviously the parking you just illustrated, cars coming in, stuff like that. Any of the other major risks that just kind of came to the surface right away handling this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're coming outside. We all know that with the political climate that we're in, and I know we're not going to jump into the whole political wheelbarrow right now, but the political climate that we're in, churches are a target.
Yep.
And so for us, we have certain things in place. So we have law enforcement that actually does our traffic out there, which to me, and we've talked about this before, I believe that's a barrier for us. So, as we process that, my mindset is when somebody or our congregation or any individual hits our front gates, our ability to see, observe, and if necessary, protect. And those were those things that we put in place. We were very intentional on making sure that we had guys in those places, in those positions, whether they're our uniform security or whether they're our plainclothes detail. And so those were some of those risk assessments that as we were doing it, our ingress and what that looked like and our ability to be able to see and observe.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That's just, you try to accommodate everything. You try to think of every potentiality or risk that to mitigate out there, and then you go to bed at night worrying which ones did I miss. But you and I have talked a couple times. You have a great cadre of guys to draw on there, so I'm sure that kind of played into it too. And I want to make sure we illustrate that for the other churches out there. You have the resources in your community to help you out with this. Your local law enforcement, sheriff's departments. You have prior military folks in your community or in your church. These people who are well versed in dealing with something like this and protecting against an enemy when setting up mitigation measures. Those are people to also draw on for these type of events where we're going to be exposing a large member of our a large part of our congregation to the outside, and then we can't control all the outside forces. So that's fantastic. For you, and I know the size and scope that you deal with, but I know you struggle with this too. Did you feel like you had enough team members? Like when you first got the notice that we're going to do this, do you feel at that time you had enough team members to get it done?
Well, it's a great question, and I think there's a couple of things that come into play in that question, and that is we're coming back after 15 weeks. And so I think that for us, we have a camera room, and we have a great group of guys that work our camera, but it's almost like re-engaging our team with an attitude of ministry.
Sure.
Because now we're coming back. So for 15 weeks, everybody sat on the couch and watched services. For us, we had as we were streaming, there was only 3 of us at our streaming service. And so, what I did to just kind of lightly keep my guys fresh is I would just grab one guy from the team, and they would come in and with 10 people in the worship center, right?
Sure.
And so that was it for 15 weeks. So kind of fast forwarding that, then all of a sudden now we're stepping on the accelerator. Now, one of the things I did do, as you know, is the week ahead of that is on Tuesday and Thursday, we set up Zoom calls with the whole team. And so with the idea of encouraging them, hey guys, we're ramping back up, we're coming back together. These are some of the changes that we're wanting to make. And there was actually really good buy-in on that too. The cool thing too about doing a Zoom meetings or even either that or producing video is because for us, a lot of my guys are working, whether they are law enforcement or just my trained observer guys that are working, 40, 50 hours a week. And so you've got to be intentional. Like I did one on a Tuesday morning and a Thursday evening to have the opportunity to kind of bring everybody, focusing them back. And so I think that was one of the struggles as far as that piece is concerned. But the nice thing for us was our first outside service was only a Sunday morning the first week. So we didn't have a Saturday night. So we only had one Sunday morning. So I had all of my guys at one service. And it was funny. I had staff come up and tell me every time I turned around, I saw one of your guys there. And it was nice too, because it gave our congregation a sense of security, protection, knowing that, for the lack of a better term, we're on the wall. Yeah. And and then last week was our first where we had a Saturday night and a Sunday morning. And so we've kind of now divided the team, and we're going into week 2 now with that format. And it's actually, we're sitting really, really well. And I think after kind of the guys got back in the stride of things, they're excited now because the outdoor service amphitheater is a completely different dynamic. And so our guys are excited about something new and different that we have to wrap our brains around. And so.
Yeah, I can imagine it just kind of sweeps away any sort of complacency right away if it was being built in at any point. You bring up the Zoom calls. That's just such a great call out there, because I think when we do that, as leaders, we think we have the answer and it's been tasked and put on our shoulders. But if we don't recognize that we have other skill sets on our team and other thought processes, those Zoom calls sometimes, when I'm sitting in a conference call, I will just listen sometimes to hear the ideas that are coming out, because they may be thinking 10,000 foot view when I'm thinking 30,000 foot view. And that's how we coalesce and come together. And and make sure that we plug all the holes that we can come up with, and all the potentialities and all the thoughts get shared in that coming together. So that's fantastic. So did you feel like, and I know some of the capabilities you have, but I want to make sure our audience gets this. Did you feel like you had the right amount of training to be successful with this?
Yeah, for us, I mean, like I've shared before, I'm extremely blessed with the team that we have here. And the cool part is I've got guys that kind of specialize at so many different things. And so, as we were coming into this, I felt like we were pretty well off. And as I've stated before, you and I have talked about it, and we've shared on Warrior Wednesday. I'm the kind of, I hate referring to myself as a leader, but obviously I lead. And so I'm the kind of person, though, that has enough wherewithal to know that I have limitations. Mm-hmm. And so I go and I find those guys that I can lean on in the areas that I'm weak. And so when I put out the op plan, I mean, I even shared the op plan with you two or 3 weeks ago when we rolled that out.
Yep.
But I sent my op plan out to 5 other guys and said, pick this thing apart. What are your thoughts? What am I missing? And I waited for them I wanted to run ahead of it enough so that it gave them 24 to 48 hours to feed back to me so I could actually affect their change. And then we implemented that. So,
I mean, that's the hallmark of a great leader is knowing that you don't have to have all the information. You just have to have the right people to have the information.
Yeah. And so I think that's important as well, is to be able to lean on those guys. And, even if your team is 2 and 3 or 4, bring them in, give them a voice, give them a say. And a lot of times when you sit there and you go, well, no, that person doesn't have anything. A lot of times you're surprised when all of a sudden you give them a voice, and then all of a sudden they start speaking into whatever it is that you're working on. And for us, something really big and coming up with an outdoor service. Like I said, I felt like we did have the training, but even for me, I mean, as you know, I contacted you, and I think it's important to have other buddies, other brothers, even outside of your circle, that you can lean on and seek counsel from. And the minute we get to the point that I don't need help, we're in trouble.
Yeah, that's usually the undoing of any great planning and any great leader, for sure. So what would you say, kind of running this like an after action review, anytime you have a major event, you should have a good after action review, what went well, what didn't go well. So what were some of the keys to your success?
Well, we do, so before every service, we do a briefing. So this would be a before, and then we do an after, where we get together and we just kind of break it down. And, we start finding those little holes, those areas of improvement, right from the jump for us, because we have the way our property is laid out, we have high ground. Mm-hmm. I hope I'm not jumping ahead into maybe one of the other questions that
no
talked about, but those were some of the things that came out for us, is to really fortify and secure the ability for us to have, because we have cameras, but we also put human beings out there, and where we had certain places. We have a high ridge on one backside of where or what I'm calling our amphitheater, which is our north parking lot now, right? So our amphitheater, and so we have a high ridge, we have a building I put my guys on, and so the cool part of that gives us the opportunity to just kind of dive in and look ahead of what we can do to improve in weeks to come. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Yep, absolutely. So what went well? I mean, obviously you had the services, and then you're adding the Saturdays now, and so obviously it is going well. But in this, what just really stood out to you is, man, this really went well.
Well, I think for us, you always go off the motivation or the excitement or the energy of your leader. And after that Sunday morning service, I knew we were heading in a positive direction, because we did live streaming inside Saturday night, and that's what they initially used for Saturday night service 2 weeks ago. Pastor came out and did a walkthrough, and you could sense Pastor's energy when we were doing the walkthrough on Saturday night after our indoor live stream. That Sunday morning, not last week, but the week prior, man, he just came out, and he's now in front of our congregation.
Right.
And the excitement and the energy that even Pastor, who's been in the ministry for 50 years, brought to the table, it's infectious, and it spilled into our team, and it was kind of cool. Even he pointed out that how blessed Shadow is to have those keeping our congregation safe. And it's really cool and encouraging for my guys to hear that come from Pastor. And then after Pastor walks off the stage, he's pumped.
Sure.
And so I knew that the event was taking off, and that was kind of our test run, because then all of a sudden it was announced, okay, we're going to do Saturday night now. And, in San Diego at 5 o'clock, it's hot.
Yeah.
And so last week was a little bit of a test on that, and direct sunlight in our population, it affects them. So we moved our Saturday night service to 6 o'clock this week for our 4th of July celebration, and that gives us a little bit of less direct sunlight on our folks, and then all of a sudden we have the sunset. So those were some of our wins and some of our positive takeaways. And I think for each week, because we're probably going to be staying in this format until the end of the month, knowing fantastic governor. And so, which I'm fine with. I love it. To me, there's an energy and an excitement. And, when you have a worship pastor like we have with Michael Sanchez, who's just got set of lungs, he's got pipes. It's pretty cool having that outdoor effect. So. Yeah.
And how much further does the word and the message and how much further does that get to go outside the walls?
Yeah.
That's probably the secondary, even tertiary benefits out there. Now people are wondering, I've known Shadow Mountain is down there, but now I'm hearing them. Let me go check this out.
And that was that was one of the other reasons why we took it off the football field, because our football field is right up next to our neighbors. And so bringing it to a different part of the property where it's inside of some of the buildings, it cuts down on our noise pollution to our neighbors. Obviously they're going to hear us, but that was the reason why we kind of brought it over to be respectful for our neighbors. And we even messaged out to our neighbors that our service was going to be 1 hour. Pastor usually will preach a little bit past, but he's being really strict with making sure that service is 1 hour. So we're being respectful to our neighbors.
Wow. That's thinking far ahead. So I guess then let's ask the obvious question. What are some of your opportunities, some of the gaps maybe you exposed that you guys are going to be tightening up without, obviously with maintaining your operational security and not giving away too much?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is certain things that we do that are secret squirrel. And I think it's important for every safety team to have their own internal stuff that they're just not going to share. But I do think, like we started off with, I think it's important if you're going to do an outdoor service, and so for all of our guys that are listening in that are either or getting ready to do outdoor service, it's controlling your in and out, your ingress and egress. Also, knowing where a car can get to, like we started this, and so whether it's cement barricades or sand 55-gallon, whatever it is that guys can put there. For us, we put church vans to create a block. So I think that's important to process. I also think it doesn't hurt to reach out to like you started tonight, is to reach out to your local law enforcement and have them come down and do a threat assessment with you, do a walkthrough. You're going to learn so much from that. Or, I mean, shoot, push comes to shove, they can call Protector's Toolkit, and one of you and I could jump on a FaceTime with them and even walk through to do it. I mean, there's so many different options that's out there for a church too that's looking to keep that tight. I think that's definitely one of the takeaways is creating a safe space if you're going to do the outside. The other one, like I've already said, is maintaining high ground. For those guys that are in law enforcement and military, you know what I'm talking about. But you want to be able to look down into your space. So we have guys on our roofs. We have guys on our ridge. I don't have them. They're not up there looking like snipers. They're not Secret Service, but they are another set of eyes that are there to be trained observers. And then the other thing too that we haven't really spent a lot of time on is in an outdoor environment. It's controlling your stage. I've done concert security in my past, and you always want to control your stage or the area in which what I would classify either for a church environment, it's where your pastoral staff they're going to be. And so on our stage right now, I think it's probably 3 or 4 feet off the ground. I've got guys working the front of the stage. I've got guys working the sides and back of the stage and the stairs where you access that. And so I think it's important to just maintain that level of safety and security. The other thing too that I'll point out is pre-service. I get there an hour plus and I do a security sweep. I walk all around the stage, and I think that's one of those little things that we get comfortable and we forget that, doing that kind of stuff. And that is going through, you're looking for anything suspicious, anything that catches your eye. Sunday, because we have all of this concert event stuff that we're using as our stage, and we brought an LED screen in. Guy that's coming across, he's dressed in black, he's got a radio on, and I'm like, okay, he's out of place. It doesn't look familiar, and he was actually one of the people that we had hired to bring in, but I hadn't seen him during the week. And so I had 2 of my guys code 5 and follow him out, and until all of a sudden he walks over in the tent where they were doing some of our logistical stuff.
Yeah.
To me, it's paying attention. It's putting all those little things in place. And then during the event is lean on your guys, allow them to do their job. Like we've talked about, I have every service now, we have an incident lead, and it's not me. Mm-hmm. So I incident lead take it. That's separate from my guys that are working the stage. My guys that are working the stage are assigned to work the stage. They're there to protect pastor, to secure the stage. I have an incident lead that's out doing and maintaining anything else that arises, and then I'm just available to float and to be available for anything. And so if the church has the ability, to have that kind of flexibility, I think it's important to put those things in place and put those things in place immediately.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point, and something we get. I guess we get it. It's not necessarily complacent. It's environmental. Safety and security is a 3D event, and what do I mean? It has width, it has length, it has depth. But our churches, the way they're made up, we don't always get to play in that 3D world. In a safety and security for an outdoor event, you can play in that 3D world, and you want to have as many different eyes, as many different levels as you can in an outdoor event. So that's fantastic. It sounds like you accommodate a bunch of different levels there, high and low, and you really made that a 3D event for that safety and security, which again, we're kind of hampered, or we're kind of our back is against the wall, so to speak, in our churches. The way the layout of the churches is what we have to deal with, and so we don't get the 3D event or the 3D effect. Maybe we get it from cameras, but that's even kind of artificial. So really, hats off on that and thinking through that to make sure you can accommodate that. So that's awesome.
And our guys have said that since we've done this, that they just feel like we're tighter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You will. I mean, when you break out of the complacency, or I don't like to call it complacency because you guys certainly are complacent, but you get into that mode of we're in the sanctuary, we know where all the walls are in here, and we can put our back to them pretty quickly. When you don't have those walls anymore, and that space, that environment that you're operating in is expanded exponentially, it will make you tighten up every skill set you have.
Yep.
Well, any special tools? I'm going to guess you guys went out and got some binoculars for sure, but any other special tools that you think led to success in this? Obviously radios too, but anything that just pops off?
Once again, I say it often, the WhatsApp, even though it's easier for us to communicate on radio in this environment, because to me, even if you're standing close to an exterior speaker, you're still able to communicate on your mic. But we still use our WhatsApp. That way, when we come back, it's not going to be, oh no, here we go, we have to pivot completely again. So, we still communicate it. We still communicate on that. And like I told you, we are doing, and one of the things that we do is we're doing briefings for our stage protection team guys. So they'll do a briefing, and then the whole team comes in and we do a general briefing. So an hour and a half before service, the stage protection team is there. And then 15, 20 minutes after that, then we bring everybody else shows up. And we're online. We're online an hour before the service. And I'm talking just a handful of us. A big chunk of us are already online an hour before because of the dynamic of the outdoor service. And so I think that's, my son's just pulled up so that he's starting his big old power plant. So,
don't you all have electric vehicles out there?
Jeez. So I think those are some, and we do have the binoculars. I didn't go purchase anything because my guys have better binoculars than something that the church is going to afford to purchase. And they brought so, and it's kind of cool too. It's not difficult for me to recruit to go sit up on top of the roof or to go sit on the ledge because it's like the best seat in the theater, right?
Yeah. Some of the guys that you have on your team have binoculars that can tell what's in your wallet, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I'm not to be gross, but they told me to clip my nose hairs. I mean, So.
That's awesome.
I'll make sure Randy and Kevin get a piece of this interview if they're not watching already.
There you go. So let's get into it. For you warriors out there, let me give you 6 ways that you can, no matter the size or scope of your church, small, medium, large, or extra large, doesn't matter the scope. It matters what you do with what you have and make sure you have a safe and secure worship environment, whether it is indoors or outdoors. But let's talk about outdoors. Some of the ways that we can ensure, well, number one, you've heard Jason already talk about. Number one, I'll just tell you, is establish a good perimeter. What are the left and right aiming stakes, so to speak? What is going to be the perimeter of this? Where are people going to be within that perimeter, and where are vehicles going to be in that perimeter? So we need to make sure that everybody that wants to access the site has an easy way of doing that to come to the site. But we don't want to make it too easy where the people we don't want to be there can come in from any sort of avenue. So when we have this outdoor event, we want to make sure that we give good avenues of approach and clean lines of approach so we can still do our job as warriors and filter everybody that's coming to our outdoor event. So establish that good solid perimeter, and that's number one. We'll put these tips up as well so you don't have to hurriedly jot them down as I'm speeding through these. Number two, and again, you heard Jason talk about it, brief your staff on the site layout. They had to go from one site to another site, and that briefing had to be done quickly to make sure that everybody knew that was affected by that was trained and to the what I call the affected level, their affected level. Whatever piece of the puzzle they had, they were trained to that piece of the puzzle. They knew the layout, no matter how big it was or how small it is. Everybody that you expect something from in that event needs to know the layout in that event. Make sure make sure if we're pointing people towards an exit, it's actually an exit and we're not pointing them into a building or into a broom closet or something like that. Make sure people know the site layout. Because when you move from an event that's typically held indoors and now you're going outdoors, things that were commonplace indoors, like fire exits, that has all changed now. Where are fire extinguishers now? Have we relocated some of those? So accommodate those, and we brief the layout so everybody knows those life safety tools that are necessary if there is some sort of crisis. They will know where those are and where to direct people to go. Number three, make a plan for major issues, but also make a plan for minor issues. Listen, if you're going to have elderly people and you're going to have children at an event, you're going to have bumps and scrapes and slips and trips and falls. You're going to need those type of plans in place, and you're going to need major plans in place if things go grossly wrong. So you're going to have weather-related events, which I call God-made events, and you're going to have man-made events. If you want to have a plan for, have a major plan and have minor plans to make sure you're assessing every opportunity out there and you can mitigate as much as possible. So have plans for major type of crisis, for man-made type of crisis, and for minor type crisis, and for God-made type of crisis. Have a plan for all of that. The other thing I like to make sure that we do, this is a highly stressful situation typically. It's new, it's novel, it's ambiguous. We haven't experienced this before. So there could be a tendency for our guys on our team the warriors that work with us day in and day out to maybe be a little bit nervous, and maybe their aggressive hospitality or just their general hospitality isn't coming through or as well. So what I like to say is make sure everybody knows to be nice. People that are attending, they're coming to this event as their first time experiencing it. They're going to have a lot of questions, and while it may seem foolish to us, it probably doesn't seem foolish to them because it came out of their mouth. So be nice. There's a great training video out there. I don't know if you've all ever seen it before. It's a really good training video. It's called Roadhouse. It has Patrick Swayze. It tells you just be nice to people until it's time not to be nice to people. Again, it's only a training video, folks. Have a medical plan. Have a medical plan for those slips, trips, and falls, bumps, bruises, and scrapes. Have that medical plan ready and have your staff briefed. Make sure they have the right tools, the right equipment, the right capability, and the right ability. Chances are you will not have a major medical emergency at your place, but you will have a need for Band-Aids and ice packs, have water on hand, and the things people may be needing in their particular medical emergency. The best thing you can do for a crying kid who escaped is need to give them an ice pack that looks nice and fancy and colorful. That really calms them down and gets them focused on that ice pack. So make sure you have a medical plan in place. If you're going to have an outdoor event, you are going to have people. We don't all live in Southern California, so we deal with some heat. If you're in the United States of Texas or anywhere in the South right now, you know what's going on. If you're going to have an outdoor event, make sure you're making those people hydrate and possibly giving them the ability to hydrate by providing water to them at your event. Have a medical plan. And last but not least, we know this in the tactical world. I've preached this to young SWAT operators. I've preached this to young soldiers in the military, and I know my brother Jason has preached this. Have a backup plan. You have heard that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Have a plan for your plan and have a plan to that plan as well. Have a backup plan for everything you're doing. Listen, when they first started this thing, they were on their football field. They had to have another plan after that, which was to go to the parking lot. And it turned out to be an even bigger and better event because of that. Have a plan for everything. Try to plan for every eventuality. That's why we coalesce with our teams. We put people together so we can start talking through the potentialities that are out there. We can talk about the savage wolves and the roaring lions and the things where the evil one would just want to shut us down in these type of events. We try to plan for everything, and then we have a backup plan to everything that we have planned for. So there you have it, Warriors. Those 6 tips or ideas, we'll put those out for you. They're not secret. We're going to give them to you for free, so don't worry about that. Any last thoughts you have tonight, Jason?
Yeah, how about if I mean, obviously, I think we broke this one down. I want to take 2 seconds, and it's something you and I have talked about, and that is our first responder brothers right now. Yeah. I think if there's ever a time that we need to pray for our first responders and our law enforcement, it is today. It breaks my heart what is taking place to our brothers and sisters protecting the thin blue line right now.
Amen.
I'm just going to leave it at that, because if I go any further, I'll get emotional. And so for those that are listening tonight that protect that thin line, you being one of them and 800,000 others, thank you. I'm grateful. And I know our country is grateful for what you guys do. And for those of you that are retired, thank you for the sacrifice that you have made. And for those of you that work with protectors, take the time to let them know how much you appreciate them. That's my 2 little cent commercial. I think it's more than ever do we need to reach out to these guys and tell them how much we're grateful for what they do.
Thank you. Yeah, amen, brother. And you and I have already talked. I'm going to kind of tease it a little bit here, but be watching Protectors Toolkit. We have something for you, protectors that are currently serving right now on the front lines of America, all over the nation. We're going to be bringing to you to make sure that we fill your soul and fill your spirit just a little bit to keep you going just that little bit more that you need to keep going. So pay attention. If you know somebody like that, have somebody in your life that is like that, pay attention here at Protectors Toolkit. You're going to see something coming out about that. And Warriors, again, I thank you. Go over to the YouTube page, share it far and wide, this video right here, share with people you know on your safety and security ministry. Hit the like button here on Facebook. And as always, what I like to say, keep them safe. Thank you.
Amen.